each of us is really passionate. And one of the things I noticed when I first had a conversation with you, is that the sense of identity and that word came up multiple times. And I think there's such a needed conversation around this. And I'm so excited we get to have it together because I know it's something you've also poured a lot of heart into. And today, I really want to get deep into not just the idea of how we see ourselves in the world, but also the effect that it has on our bodies, our health, and our nervous system, because I think this is something not talked about often enough. It's a conversation that remains in this realm of it's almost very psychological and ethereal, and unseen and intangible. But a conversation about identity really gets into a conversation about our very biology, the way we're wired, what's possible. And I think it's such a missing element to the conversation about health, especially in our nation today. So I am very excited to get into this, but I want to kind of go like first things first. We talk a lot about identity, but I want to define what exactly we mean when we say a conversation about identity and how you see it and why it's important. So I'm going to bounce it to Rachel first, but then I want to hear you too. Give me a definition of what identity really means and why it matters so much before we get started.
I would say identity is the combination of the views and beliefs that we carry about ourselves and the ways in which we relate to ourselves directly creates and impacts all of our circumstances and relationships. So what does that mean? The view that we have of ourselves, which at the core is the relationship that we have with ourselves. And so we're constantly, in every single moment, we are relating to ourselves in everything that we do. We're always carrying a view and a belief about ourselves. What is true about who I am as a person? And this is going to ultimately then create everything that we have in our entire life. It's going to create all of our relationships. It's going to create all of our circumstances. And so the identity that we carry, I believe, is the most important aspect for creating the life that we desire, for creating the health that we desire, for really creating any kind of change that you want in your life. Because if our identity is rooted in a belief of, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, we're going to constantly be creating, not only from that energy, but the nervous system, the brain that has been conditioned to believe these identities to be true on a very subconscious level. Oftentimes we may have the conscious beliefs. Oh no, I know I'm worthy. I know I'm good enough, but there are these hidden subconscious beliefs and identities that we carry that are really creating everything that's happening in our life. And so for somebody who's really struggling to get into a healthy relationship, for somebody who's struggling to up-level in their career or their life, and they find themselves running into the same things over and over and keep attracting the same partners into their life, we have to begin to examine what is the views that I have about myself? What is that relationship? What is the core identities and the beliefs that I'm carrying? Because it's not just only carrying an energetic frequency, because we can dive into that from a very energetic lens, but I truly believe on a subconscious level, the brain is always scanning the environment and searching for things that are happening to validate these core beliefs and these core wounds. And an example of this is when I was a young girl and I faced a lot of neglect, I disassociated as a form of protection. So when I would be in class and in school, I would completely shut down, not pay attention. I would get to the end of class and I could not tell you at all what the teacher would say. And this was an adaptive behavior that I learned because my upbringing was so chaotic that if I could separate myself from what was happening around me, that I didn't have to feel or experience all of that. And so it was actually a positive adaptation for me to learn to disassociate. But as a byproduct of that, I did really bad in school. And so I was failing a lot of my classes. I was actually put in remedial classes in elementary school. And so based off of this, I developed an identity and a belief of I'm stupid. And I didn't realize this for a long time. It wasn't like as a young girl, I was like, oh, I'm stupid or this. But I realized later on in life when I was wanting to go to college or I was launching my business that I had some of these core identities and beliefs. And there would be many times in my life where maybe I was speaking in front of people and my words would come out not as eloquently as I would want it to be. What I would find myself doing is looking at these moments and being like, oh, see, there it is. I'm stupid. And almost reinforcing a lot of these identities and beliefs. And so it's almost like this purple colored glasses that we're looking through, which are then shaping the world that we see around us. But, I would say ultimately it's the views, the beliefs that we carry about ourselves that really are creating all of which that we have in our life today. And I think we will never be able to grow and expand to a level that goes beyond the ways in which we relate to ourselves or the identities that we carry.
It's beautiful and super well said. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll echo so much of what you said. It was so honestly perfect. What I'll layer in there, and there's a layer to the layer, is that
Always.
I know, always.
I love all your layers.
Layer, baby.
Well, there's the sort of awakened and then the unconscious version of what I'm going to share. Absolutely what you believe about yourself, how you're relating to yourself, as well as your attributes, your values, your boundaries, what you tolerate, not tolerate, what you like or dislike. So the layer to that is the awakened individual will be conscious of all of what I just shared and be sort of paying close attention and either editing out or bringing forth, more of that attribute or, the thing that you like versus the thing you don't like, enforcing the boundary or not, holding to the standard, et cetera, or not, right? The unawaked, unconscious individual will just be sort of living from that belief that may not even be a true belief for them, but was, put into their consciousness or subconscious, even from childhood or wherever it came from, and create these sort of narratives about themselves. And now it's like how they're moving through their life and relating to themselves from that place. But it's all from this sort of unconscious, you're walking around and you're not really aware that this is even how you're perceiving yourself, right? So I do believe that self-identity, essentially self-concept, for me, it's the words are essentially interchangeable, but your values, your standards, your boundaries, what you like, what you don't like, those are, and your attributes. These are very essential pieces from my perspective that need to be sort of also put into the conversation of self-identity.
Yeah. I love that so much. And, I think this conversation is so important from a practical level because people often talk about self-sabotage. They have some area of their life, like I want to change. I want to see success in my profession, let's say, but I feel stuck. Or I want to see, some different, eating and nutrition habits, but I keep falling into something else. Anytime there is a sense of like, there's almost two yous, and there's the you that knows something they want, and then some other you that keeps acting, and you feel like it's random. You wonder what's happening here. Why is there not a sense of alignment? I believe it always goes back to a belief. I think anything in life that we want, success, whatever it is, it's actually just an extension of who we really truly believe we are. And I think we wait oftentimes for a silver bullet to come along. I'm going to find some diet that's going to perfectly, fix everything, or I'm going to get into this job. So we're waiting for external things to change. And I know for myself, at least in my life, I started to really see practically things come and begin to attract when I had a true sense of this is an extension of who I am. And I think that in so many different ways, it's such an important and missing part to the conversation if we talk about building success, if we talk about building health. But I think that there's an element to it that is not often talked about, and it's the psychophysiology part, in which when you build an identity around yourself of like, let's say, I'm the sacrificer. And I think, many of us had mothers who really identified as the sacrificer, right? I make my needs not matter. I put others' needs before myself, and I make my voice small, so I'm sacrificer. The body, the nervous system, actually builds pathways around these patterns over and over. They become well-worn. They become familiar. So when we go into actually having an awakening and a becoming, it doesn't feel comfortable at first. And if anything, the body might actually start to put off some red alert. No. Nothing is safe. And I think that if you're going to change up your nutrition and diet, you want to start a new job opportunity, you are pursuing a new relationship, I don't think we talk about the physical effect of actually going through that. And that's something I would love to just hear really from both of you is, did you feel a sense of unease or dysregulation when you were first going for something? And then also too, because I know you both are very wise about the body, I would just love for you to share a little bit of like what's actually happening biologically. Because I know when I started really understanding the nervous system part, I was able to not judge myself and not think it was weird when my body was actually putting off alert signals, alarm signals in the midst of stepping into, I would say it's not a new identity. I would say it's a true identity. It's just that I had grown comfortable in another kind of persona. And so I just want to open up that aspect of the conversation because I don't think we're, talk about it as often as we should really.
Yeah, so good.
Look, I get it. You are burnt out with today's healthcare systems and options that are being offered. Maybe you've gone the conventional medicine route and you've gotten basic lab testing done and everything came back as normal, but you still felt like something was truly wrong in your body and you still struggle to get better. This is why I'm so passionate about what we do at Rachel Scheer Nutrition. We are not like a lot of the other functional medicine practices that are out there. We are not a one-size-fits-all program. The system that we developed was actually what I wish that I had when I was struggling with my own health issues, when I was on 5+ medications and I was being told that I needed to have my entire large intestine removed. I saw firsthand what it truly takes to heal. And it's not just extensive labs. Yes, those are important, but truly identifying why we have these problems in the first place, which means we want to get to know you. We want to get to know your lifestyle, your diet, your trauma history, the things that you walked through. We also bring in something called psychophysiology, which is the mind-body connection. And this is what it really means to have a holistic approach when it comes to healing. So if you're sick and tired of the conventional what approach without truly healing, and you're sick and tired of working with functional practitioners or just giving you cookie cutter plans, and you want to learn more about the RSN approach, you can book a free call by visiting rachelscheer.com. Yeah, what we're really talking about is neuroplasticity and also psychophysiology. And so I'm going to dive into both of those, and then I'll answer your question about my own experiences and my nervous system and things that I've had to walk through as I was shifting some of my own identities and beliefs that I've had about myself. But at the core, all beliefs that we have about ourselves at one point in time served us in one way or another. It actually served you to be the people pleaser. If you carried the identity of I am unworthy and that my worth is tied to being the giver and serving other people, and that is how I'm going to receive love, there's actually a benefit that you're receiving from giving to other people, from serving other people, to a point of actually self-sacrificing and burning yourself out. But there's still a benefit there. And so a lot of these beliefs and identities that we carry, they're adaptive. We went through something in our life, and children at the core, they're very egocentric. And so when something happens in our life, when mom and dad are gone, or there's neglect, or mom and dad are yelling at each other in the kitchen, and I don't know what's going on, and there's chaos, a little kid doesn't think, oh, well, mom and dad are just upset and they're going through this in their life, or my mom has all of this. They're egocentric, and so they're going to relate everything back to themselves. And so the child thinks, oh no, it's because of me. I'm bad. I'm not good. And so we start to develop a lot of these core identities actually in our upbringing, in our childhood. And then because a child's not just desire, but their need is love, is connection. We often talk about there's love and attachment, but attachment is crucial. But attachment is crucial to a child's survival. Mm-hmm. And so when the need for authenticity, which is one of also our core needs, comes in competition with the need for attachment, the child will always choose attachment over authenticity in a lot of ways. So we develop these different identities, often rooted in shame and not good enough, and develop different beliefs and adaptive patterns in order to actually protect us from feeling these core wounds. And so they helped us very early on in life. And when these different adaptive patterns and behaviors were cultivated, it developed different neural pathways in the brain. And so I always describe this like you're driving the same way to work every single day. You don't even have to think about it, right? You get in your car and you're going to work, and somehow you just end up at work. You just end up there. I don't think about it, or I don't drive to work anymore. I work from home. But it's almost, I remember when I would drive to work and I would just end up there, and I was like, I didn't even have to think about it. My mind was wandering about all the things I had to do, but somehow just my nervous system, my physiology knew all of that. And that's the same way neuroplasticity works. And so often, based off of these things that have happened in our life, where we've developed different identities and beliefs and therefore habits, we now have been following a certain program through our entire life, which has created an autonomic neural pathway that we don't even think about on the day-to-day basis. And now, all of a sudden, we want to shift. It's like wanting to drive a different direction to work. And it takes a lot more energy, attention, to actually have to pause and say, oh, we're actually going to go a completely new direction. And especially if we're not aware of the beliefs, the identities that have been shaping us for most of our life, for many people, it's virtually impossible to actually begin to shift and create this new identity. So a big part of making this change is we have to develop new neural pathways. Yeah. In the brain to be able to shift our identities, because we've, for many people, been following these same neural pathways for decades of our entire life, and they have served us in some way, shape, or form. And along with that, when we're making a lot of these shifts where we maybe have received benefits from these different behaviors that we've carried in our life, and we're wanting to make a change, our physiology responds. It's actually comfortable. It's more safe in these certain beliefs and the current realities that we have. This is why so many people will stay in a toxic relationship. We can fundamentally know that this relationship is not healthy, that it's abusive, that we are worthy of something more. And we make the decision that I need to create a change. I need to get out of this. And so the pain has become great enough that we want to leave. So this person leaves the relationship. And all of a sudden now they start to experience a lot of the nervous system dysregulation. They start to experience the fear. They start to experience the unknown. And they feel like something is wrong all of a sudden. Something's wrong with me. I'm not supposed to be feeling this way. And so this is the moment where we get to decide. And if we don't know what's happening, it's really difficult, because all that happens is you feel these sensations in the body and you want to get rid of it as fast as possible. So I always say,
run back to safety.
Yeah. My brother was just going through a breakup, and I told him, "You're in nervous system boot camp right now." When you're creating different neural pathways, you're gonna feel the dysregulation for a period of time because it's something that's brand new. But what usually happens is we start to create the shift. We feel this uneasiness. Our nervous system becomes dysregulated. And then the mind and the body wants us to go back to what's comfortable and known. And so this is where, for many people who even have become accustomed to unhealthy relationships, to different levels of stress, they feel almost a level of safety and familiarity and comfortability in these chaotic environments. Logically, they know that it's not good for them and they shouldn't stay in it. They try to leave it, but then their nervous system doesn't allow them to make that shift. And so I've just experienced that time and time again in my life. And I think for me, it's been these moments of really reframing. And then to answer the last part of your question of what have been moments that I've experienced that, I mean, public speaking. I would say public speaking has been one of the biggest ways. I was very introverted growing up, and I shared at the beginning of the podcast, one of my ways I learned to survive was through disassociation. And so having to be in front of people, having to use my voice, and I also had a belief of my voice wasn't worthy of being heard. No one wanted to hear what I had to say. So there was all these beliefs, all these different identities wrapped around. And then all of a sudden you put a mic in front of me and it's like, who am I? And I would shut down. I would actually go back into this pattern. And this was a nervous system shift. I could say, and I know what I would want to talk about. I could get in front of the mic and then my physiology would completely shift.
It's not mental, actually. It's very physical.
I would go into a shutdown and then I couldn't think. And I couldn't speak. And then guess what would happen? That belief of I'm stupid
reinforced
would then come back up again. And this is what happens for so many people. And we get into this cycle. And so much of my healing was not one, continuously putting myself in that environment, right? Because if I would have been that person who was like, you know what? I am stupid. And see, look, I told you got in front of the mic and you couldn't speak. And I just backed away from that. Like, I would not be on this mic today at all. And also, I will say this, there are moments where sometimes that happens to me still to this day. I am human. I've had moments where I've gotten on the mic and my train of thought has completely slipped. And I don't know where I'm going anymore. And we've all had those moments where it's gone. And in those moments, I feel a complete nervous system dysregulation of what comes over me because it's this old belief and this old wound coming up of, oh no, I'm stupid and I'm not going to remember and all of these different things. But it's actually been through continuously putting myself in that environment and also saying it's okay. It's okay to be in a place of dysregulation. I think we need to be able to ride the waves of dysregulation and come out on the other side to give the nervous system and the brain new evidence that it's okay to be in this place.
Yeah.
So Lauren, I'm so excited to have you a part of Rachel Scheer Nutrition, but what are some of the reasons why you wanted to join the Rachel Scheer Nutrition team?
When I looked at the projections of where functional medicine is expected to go over the next few years, I mean, it's going to skyrocket, as well as telemedicine. So when I got to see, hey, this is an opportunity not just to be on the forefront of a conversation about the paradigm of healthcare changing in our nation today, but also a movement to equip those leaders who will lead the way. I mean, that's an incredibly exciting thing. So I'm excited to see what's ahead because, I mean, honestly, we're just getting started.
I know, we're just getting started. And it's so exciting to see how functional nutrition and functional medicine truly is the healthcare of the future. And I am so excited to see the amount of health coaches and dietitians, nurse practitioners, and nurses who are wanting to get into this field, who are wanting to truly really make an impact. They're sick and tired of having only 15 minutes with clients who really don't actually want their advice, and to be able to also create the freedom that they truly want in their life as well, to create the impact and the income. So if you guys are listening to this and you want to learn more about how you can get in on functional nutrition and become certified with your background as a health coach or a practitioner, you can head over to rachelsheer.com/certification and you can learn more about our certification process.
Big things ahead.
Big things ahead.
Without it reinforcing identity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
How have you seen that identity work show up for you in a physical way?
In a physical way. I'm going to come at it from a different angle.
Let's
then.
go. I love it when you say that because I love originality. And so I just like, come baby, go on a different angle.
It's actually, as I review it in my mind, it's actually a very empowered sort of angle on this idea of identity and its impact on shaping your reality. So I'll go back to when I was 17, I blew out my ACL and my meniscus through Taekwondo. Wow. And it was intense. I was an athlete growing up. My body type, I'm a mesomorph. So if you look at, I have 3 brothers and a sister, and my brother, we're all athletes. I was a competitive runner as a young girl, and I never had to look at my body, and there was no fat. There was just like, you're just built, you know? Until the injury happened.
Yeah.
And then I'm on the American diet primarily, right? And before I knew it, and I'm also like a teenager, right? So things are shifting just naturally. And all of a sudden, for 2 years, I couldn't be active. My knee was immobile. I had no mobility in my knee. I did work to get it back. It was stuck. It was bent for months. So I gained all this weight, right? And gratefully I gained it all over, but it was still like, wait, what? What's happening to me, right? Yeah. So what happened is that because I identified as the athlete though, right? So this is why it's a different angle.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yep. Because I identified as the athlete, I was like, this doesn't feel right to me.
The loss of identity.
Yeah, and it wasn't I wasn't consciously looking at it even from this, what I'm sharing now. I wasn't aware of this yet, right? Because it was just more of like, this isn't who I am. When I look in the mirror, it didn't make sense to me because I was used to seeing the girl who's going to be the Olympian, and like FloJo wasn't like, I'm ripped. I mean, I would get the comments of like, you have an 8-pack, you have it, to the point where I didn't even like it. Like, shoulders, Rocky. And I'm like, anyways. So all of a sudden I'm like looking at myself and I'm starting to, 18, 19, 20, 21. And I'm like, and I had no tools yet. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, when, 80s, I graduated in high school in 96. Rachel.
I was 3.
Yeah.
Baby Rachel.
Yeah, exactly.
You're 4.
So
I know.
So, the things that we
Please say older by 1 year.
What we
She
have
laughs. I'm like, you were 4.
I know. Exactly. True.
I was babysitting both of you, my girls.
You could have babysat.
We didn't have what we have available to us now by way of information, by way of just accessibility to help.
We were and our moms were like all the processed everything.
Yes, it was like, so so I didn't have the information. I didn't have the tools. I didn't know what to do. I never had to rely on anything to even know what to do. So it became this incredibly painful journey, actually.
Yeah.
That lived with me pretty much through almost all of my 20s. Gratefully, towards the end of my 20s, like I always say, like I cracked the code.
Yeah.
The part that I think is most relevant to what we're talking about is that throughout that journey in my 20s where I was trying everything, like gratefully, I never got into some unhealthy like anorexia. Or gratefully, I'm so grateful because I'm like, whoa, how did you not?
But the diet advice circulating at that time,
but like I
maybe
like,
not great.
Don't eat the master cleanse, like things that I look at now and I'm like, oh my God, my sciencey nerdy self is like, oh, you poor thing.
I remember some like cabbage soup diet going around. Did you ever hear about that? I probably did that. Grapefruit diet, cabbage soup diet.
All of it. Oh, totally. Like all of it. Meanwhile, my brothers were telling me the right things the whole time and I just wasn't having it. Lift weights, eat protein. I'm like, no, I'm going to be bulky. So anyways, but the part again, that's so important for me in retrospect, when I look back, I'm like, and look, this is not like, I wasn't accepting myself, but not from a place of not loving myself. It was because I loved myself so much. I knew that there was a disconnect from not just this identity of being an athlete, because once again, it wasn't even a totally conscious thought. That wasn't what was carrying me forward through the journey. It was just that I knew in my body, like I just didn't feel right and it didn't look right to me. So it was like two things were happening.
Actually, in the reverse way, that the identifying as an athlete was a beautiful, helpful thing. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get that.
This is an empowered angle.
I love that.
Because we could look at it from two perspectives, right?
Sure.
And like, but I think it's valuable to give both, right? And so ultimately what helped me to get on the other side, to crack the code, was just knowing that there was something really disconnected from what I believed to be true about myself, as well as just feeling the physical sort of feelings of like, you just feel more lethargic. You don't feel like a certain level of vitality that came so natural to me at my younger age. You're not thinking like, oh, this is vitality, right? But when it wasn't there, it was like, what's, you know what I mean? Like something
doesn't feel right
here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it was really the sort of identity around like, I'm a athletic, fit, strong woman, girl that helped me to essentially fight for myself.
I love that.
To never settle into, well, guess this is just how it is now. It's like,
but for someone else that didn't maybe have that baseline of how they saw themselves.
Yeah.
You might go through your 20s and if you had an underlying belief that, I'm not beautiful or wanted or strong or healthy, it could be a reinforcing, one. And to me, this conversation is so important from a personal level, because I've seen in my life, and if there's ever a time in which there's enough information and tools to step into something that you want, but you keep finding yourself stuck despite the fact that like, hey, all the tools are here, but I'm not finding traction, momentum. Somewhere, usually there's a belief, some kind of belief. You're not attracting, I think we attract what we really believe about ourselves.
Absolutely.
So there's that whole journey that's so personal. But one of the reasons I'm really passionate about this, and a lot of, even what Rachel and I are doing together and from a business perspective, when it comes to health, and this gets into kind of a bigger conversation about society. I believe that there has been a message that is often reinforced about health in a sense of powerlessness. And what do I mean by that? It's, I see my body as a mystery and I outsource the wisdom to experts to tell me exactly what to do. And then I have no way to know if it's right or wrong. And I just do what I'm told. Yeah. You know what I mean? I just follow the expert. I read the thing. If I go with the diagnosis, and we need experts, by the way, I just want to say that super clearly. We need people who understand the body more intricately. All of that's true. But I'm talking about a position and identity that if you see yourself as powerless, if you don't feel that you have full ownership of your entire body, of your mind, if you aren't actually educating yourself to learn about your body, what happens is you become stuck in the state of you're actually outsourcing the power for your health to somebody else. And I think especially, I would say in the United States, we have this place in which we're looking to almost I outsource the motivation to, my personal trainer who tells me this, and then I go to a doctor for this, and I just kind of follow orders. And we need guides. We need partners who maybe can help us in these things, but it has to come from a sense of ownership over our bodies. And that's an identity thing. To be in a sense of powerless state, you're not in the driver's seat, know, and we see this over and over in health is that, and a lot of this comes back to, yes, we do. The reason education is so important is because it breaks the mystery of your own body. You decode it and you learn to say, like, this is my body to care for. And you're coming from a sense of power instead of powerlessness. I think that kind of ownership is such a missing piece in healthcare, in the way we consider health, and really on a pretty societal level.
Yeah. My stance on this, especially in the functional practice, but we see so many people who give away their power. They make their physicians their God, and they become victims to their circumstances. And this is also why I'm against labeling when it comes to a lot of diagnoses. And of course, we want to be able to understand something. So there is giving something a definition so we can better understand it. But as soon as you give somebody the label of major depressive disorder, as soon as you give somebody the label of you could say IBS or whatever condition that this person is suffering with, what I see time and time again is people stop looking for answers. They stop trying to truly heal, and they start managing this condition or this disease that they have. And so by this labeling that we have seen time and time again in our system, again, we need to be able to understand something better so we can treat it, but we do become victims ultimately. How many times have you heard somebody say, like, this is my condition or this, and they attribute it so much to their identity.
Yeah.
Even with the diagnosis of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. All right. So you fit a cluster of symptoms. Well, why are you experiencing these symptoms? Well, there's a root cause for that. We can begin to understand, but we see it exponentially in our healthcare system of outsourcing our power, given labels to different conditions, and then just trying to manage. And there's even benefits that people get from this, because if I am sick, if I am dysfunctional, often for many people, they can get the attention and the love that they even desire. So there can even be a benefit that can often be given. And I'm not saying that's a lot of people, but I have seen that also quite a bit before. And then I would also even say, when it comes to beliefs, if you don't believe that you can heal, so as soon as you take on this label of this is what's wrong with me, this is how I'm dysfunctional, this is the disease that I have, and I need to start managing it. And conventional medicine is notorious for doing this. And people not only become powerless and they stop becoming their own advocates for their own healing and searching for answers, but they also begin to harness these beliefs of I'm broken.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me to go along with it. And as soon as we take on those beliefs or those identities, the body's not going to heal.
And reinforced too.
You know what? I love that so much, Rachel, because I'm thinking about, I've had experiences in life with people that I love, that I know, and get diagnosed with something and it becomes they take actual ownership to it, and it integrates into their identity, and they settle. That's the part.
Yep.
They stop
take it on.
and they settle on it. Now it's the conversation becomes, because of my IBS or my bipolar or my whatever. And it's like, whoa. And especially again, as a writer, where I'm so, I look at words from just I look at words through the lens of energy.
Yeah.
And so I go, wait, are you sure you want to own that?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't face it. I'm not saying it's not a real thing. I'm just saying, are you sure you want to take ownership of it? Because if you're taking ownership of, you're trying to keep it. And if you're trying to keep it, what comes with that?
And you could say, I'm experiencing IBS.
Yeah.
Or I have IBS, right?
Yeah.
Or I am an anxious, bipolar.
I have anxiety, or I have anxious disorder, or I'm feeling depressed, or I have major depressive disorder. They're very, very different. And I think we need to be very cognizant of the words that we use, because the words we use have power.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's really true. And I would say here recently, there's even this when it comes to mental health and sharing your story. I'm really passionate about the fact that storytelling, you guys know, I mean, I've devoted my life, I'm working on like number 14 books. So I'm very big on, I think it's important to share your story. I think even sharing trauma that you've been through can be really healing and beautiful. I also think that it's so important how it's told and the frame in which you're communicating it. And the same is true for things you're dealing with in mental health. And what I mean, and we get into this a bit deeper, we could say, this is my story and I was victimized in this way. I experienced this trauma. Therefore, I have blank disorder, and blank disorder. And now I'm wearing this, and all of those things may be true, but I begin to wear it and actually reinforce it. And I think a lot of healing spaces, while it's so good to be able to have a safe space to share about trauma, it's a great thing to have a safe space to be able to say, because of that, I am now dealing with anxiety or depression or any of these things. Okay, I get all of these are true. But I think even both in the physical world and when we talk about, mental health, it's the framing and the words we use are so important. And it's why, even when we storytell, and I'm really, that many of my books have dealt with some elements of trauma or someone's been through that's really difficult, but we have to be careful, again, on a nervous system level. We can actually reinforce that an event is re-happening to us by re-talking about it.
Totally.
We can reinforce that that's who I am, is the victim, because we keep framing ourselves as that character in the story. And I think that conversation, especially now, it's like, hey, we need awareness. We need transparency. But for what purpose? If it's just a reinforcement, then at the end of the day, it's actually a real disservice to our minds and bodies. But if we can have a conversation that's actually empowering and it has a sense of ownership to it, that's very different. And so I think the labeling that you're talking about, I think it's true both in physical and mental space and how we see it, what we accept, and even the spaces that we create for how we go about sharing things that are a struggle. And how we look at it and relate to it.
I worked with a coach once. Every time I would say my trauma, she would stop me. And she was really big on this. And she would say the trauma.
Yeah.
She goes, stop owning it. Yeah. Stop owning it. And so now I'm more careful of saying the trauma I experienced, the things that I walked through. But it's even to that depth, my trauma, this is mine. And it's almost like we make it a part of our identity.
Yeah. Anytime you take ownership like that, you're actually fully integrating it into your identity. Yeah. And we have to think about, well, what does that even mean then? Well, your identity is shaping your reality.
Yep.
So it's affecting your decisions. It's affecting your habits, your behaviors, all of that. So it's not just as, my trauma and now I've integrated it into my identity, but now your whole life becomes this sort of extension of what you believe about yourself because of your trauma. And that shows up in a variety of ways in your relationships and just how you're sort of relating to your life and processing your life. So it really is, I know the word layered, but it really is layered. It's really complex. And that's why as much as it might seem this, like it's a simple thing of, just swap a word, it's actually, there's a lot of weight to that should be sort of
it's
considered.
Programming you. Yeah. It's not just words. Words have power and they are programming you. And so I think it's incredibly important to pause and how often you're saying my disorder, my trauma, this, and actually taking ownership of it instead of looking at it as something that you're experiencing.
Yeah. I think there's a difference in taking full, because I've said before I had to take ownership of my trauma, but what I meant by it was at some point I had to stop waiting for, let's say, someone in my life to make something right or something to change. I had to say, this whole body, this whole mind everything here is mine to love and to process through. And so there's an ownership of me. And part of that is all my experiences and actually an acceptance of it. But that's different than actually the identifying with it. And I think that there can be, and this is where we kind of go back to where we started, there can be a deep sense of safety that is associated with something that's familiar. And anytime I think you want to see a change in health and, profession, any of it, there's going to be a sense of discomfort right at first, even maybe dysregulation that's associated with choosing things that are different.
What have you done in your, because you're, I just you just an incredibly courageous, outstanding woman who has been so resilient in your life. And you have definitely faced the evolution of your identity. And, how have you, I'm just so curious, like when you've met those edges, what did you do?
Ooh, such a good question. And I think really, and goes back to everything we're talking about, it's really that the work to really see my identity and know my true self. Before there was a lot of outward manifestations. You guys know my story really well. There was times in my life in which you would have looked at my situation and been like, yeah, she's in a powerless situation. Like it's a no-win. She's gonna feel like it really looks by everything around here. And what's interesting is that in my heart, I experienced and actually really found a sense of identity in freedom and finding peace and truth. And then there was some processes of actually being able to align my outward with my inward, but the inward led first. And the same was true in my career. I found a sense of who I am, really developed. And then it gave me the courage to step into different things. And so I think the ability to consistently, when you're starting to, you understand who you are on the inside, but when you first start to step out and make choices, make heart moves in any area, relationships or profession, one of the things that I realized, and this helped me so much, is that, at least for me personally, the first experiences of what others would have called my big successes, my first book release, my first time I stood up and talked to 5,000 people, first time I sat at a boardroom next to a couple of prime ministers, none of it felt good necessarily in the moment. And I'll just be honest, success didn't feel comfortable. I didn't get a rush of dopamine that flooded my system that was like, oh my gosh, you're the best, woo! Didn't come like this for me. I actually felt I was facing, because of my nervous system, really, everything felt unfamiliar. Yeah. I felt, but I knew in my soul, this is where I belonged. So it wasn't that I was doing something that was unaligned. My true heart knew, this is it, Lauren, and you belong here. But your body, which is trained, and your nervous system, which is trained to feel comfortable in the back, feel comfortable being silent, feel comfortable, deferring to somebody else. All the alarm bells are going off and saying like, all the cameras are on you, the lights are on you. I had this journaling practice that I did, and I still do. And I just would journal over and over. I feel safe and comfortable in the warmth of the spotlight, because spotlight for me was so scary. Really so scary, just to be seen by the world. Some people really revel and just automatically love spotlight, and I love them for that.
Me.
That's amazing too.
I think all three of us.
That's amazing. Actually, if you really just for me, it was didn't feel great, and so I wish more people knew. And I don't think it's because I think a lot of people, when they do achieve success, they want to just enjoy the ego's kind of happy now that we made it and did it. But I want to be honest about the fact that my happiness, satisfaction, proud of myself, dopamine moments always come months after I try something new for the first time. My first book release, I wanted to throw up the whole time, the whole first week. I felt exhausted. I wanted to sleep. Like nothing in my body said, woo. But guess what? Now I look back and I'm just so proud of her too.
Yeah.
So I think what I would say when you said, how did you do it? I learned that it was okay that, and I didn't take it as something was wrong, that as I was aligning with where I belonged and my true self, it was okay that I felt a little dysregulated. It was okay that I didn't get a dopamine hit of what others call happy at first.
Yeah.
And I just held space for that because it felt true. And I knew it was authentic and that was okay. And so I do wish we talked a little bit more about that, the sensations, right? When you're doing the thing that's aligned for you, sensation, physical nervous system may feel really off just because you're trying something new, you know? And so what I did is I sat with myself through that. Again, we talked about self-trust, you know, a lot. Just being able to say like, hey, I'm going to stick the course. And one thing I'll say about myself is I'm relentless in when I see this and I don't fucking move.
I love it.
And I can bleed, I can hurt. Once I know it's mine to do, like I'm like stubborn. My mom called me stubborn, you know. I'm in, you know. So I can sit still through it. I can go even when it doesn't feel good. But in hindsight, I wish I'd learned a little sooner how normal it was to feel that way. And now I'm listening and talking to you guys. You're like, oh, me too. And I was like, so I'm not crazy. No, it was just me.
I think it's super important. And everything that you're talking about there is you are creating new neural pathways.
Yes.
And you are creating a new level of safety within your nervous system. And so we can break it down to a very physiological level and look at neuroplasticity to really understand what is happening. We've been operating from a certain identity, a certain belief, a certain autonomic pattern and behaviors for years, decades of our entire life. And all of a sudden now we're trying to create a shift. And so nervous system dysregulation.
Yeah.
And so all of the feelings that go along with it of this isn't right, this isn't safe is going to go along with it. And this is why so many of us who try to shift our identity easily fall back into these core identities, especially when so much of these identities are on a very subconscious level and we're not even aware of them, that they're really driving everything. We may want something, and this is something I've said before, you may have a vision that you want for your life. You may have goals. You may journal about it every single day. But as long as your identity is rooted in something other than that, what is aligned with what it is that you're wanting to create, you will always end up back to where you've always been. So we have to be able to align ourselves with what we desire in the life that we want with a new level of safety. So how do we do that? One, we need to condition the nervous system that it's okay to go through these periods of uneasiness and fear and dysregulation. And that's totally okay to be in that place. One of my other coaches who I worked with, I've done all of the healing stuff, especially when it came to speaking, you know, being in front of the spotlight. And I did a lot of work around that. And okay, I'm podcasting, I'm giving speaking engagements, and I started to feel a level of comfortability. And we were able to uncover what some of the beliefs were there. But then I was offered to speak to 2,000 people. And guess what? The same
that
beliefs,
up-leveling, it comes again full circle.
all started to come up, and that uneasiness. And she was like, oh, no. She goes, just so you know, you've already done the work. We've revealed what is really there. It's the same beliefs. It's the same conditioning. And that's what's powerful. When you've done the work, it's usually not something new. It's not a new identity. It's not a new belief that's driving. But it's the same core wounds and things that we've been operating from a long time. And so you healed to a certain level in your life. But anytime you try to up level in your life, these things are going to start to come back up. So I was able to become comfortable speaking to a few hundred people and podcasting. But I bet any of us, if we were asked to speak into 10,000 people, you think some beliefs about worth or all of those things might come up, you know, along the way. Of course. Yeah. Even though we may know, okay, I'm worthy, I'm all of this, I've done all of this work on myself, but it's just a new level. And so I think that's super empowering
So
for other
good.
people to
Yeah.
really realize. And so now I really reframe it differently. So when I'm growing in entrepreneurship, it's one thing that I love so much is I feel like constantly I'm just like, all right, we're always up leveling.
Always.
So I'm always in this place. I'm always putting myself in these uncomfortable situations, but I'm able to reframe it of like, oh, this is a good thing. Because this is a sign that I am continuously raising that water line on the pool.
I love that so much. And
Yeah.
I think
So good.
to know and be comfortable being beginner again is a beautiful thing. And, you know, Roxie, I was thinking about you because you're in an interesting juxtaposition between having the opportunity to actually coach people. And then I see you're such like you're a guide, you're an oracle, you have a depth of wisdom in you. And I have been the happy recipient of in so many ways. And you're also someone who's really passionate about health and the way that you care for your body.
Absolutely.
So what I want to ask you is, what do you think when you're working with someone, right? And they're going through, because I think we tend to kind of put mental and physical into different areas, compartmentalize. I would love for you to talk a little bit about when you're helping someone unlock, when you're helping someone not self-sabotage. First of all, what are the ways that mind and body work together? And secondly, what are the barriers that often hold people back from really being able to be their truest self? The self-sabotage that go back to identity and belief.
So good. Okay. I think one thing that is so important to say first is that we are a system of systems. And, most people say self-development. I say holistic self-development because mind, body, spirit are truly, it's all an integration of, it's like one thing. Of course, we have to break them apart to start to understand them more deeply and with mastery, but we cannot forget that they all work together, right? One of the first things that I will do with any woman I'm coaching or mentoring, and if obviously it's a lot of the mindset stuff that will be coming at me through them, I'm always first looking at what's your lifestyle like. To fight the mind with the mind without the body doesn't work.
Yeah.
People forget that most people live upstairs, right? You have to integrate the whole thing to really be your whole self. And so if if a woman comes to me and let's just say she's like, I want to trust myself more, I want to be more confident. I'm like, how are you sleeping? What kind of food? What's your movement like? Like, what's the relationship with your vitality? Because if that is at a low point, I can sit here and help you try and jujitsu your mindset all day long. It's never going to be what it could be when your vitality, when your health is more optimized. I know in my own life and my own journey that as I started to increase my vitality, holy shit, I'm a resilient woman, period, from just birth. I think my soul came out with fire and resilience. So I got an edge there. But what I learned about myself is that as my vitality strengthened, my health, my body, everything related, oh my gosh, my psychology became fucking unbreakable. I'm not saying I can't be, I don't deal with anxiousness or worries or anything that any of us humans, but my ability to manage them, more emotional mastery, all of that just came in so much stronger as a result of the relationship that I created with my body and especially health. Vitality and health, they're actually two sort of separate things. Yes, they go together, but I prefer the word vitality because vitality is not just health. Health is, I think, how we've been sort of dished. It's like the avoidance of disease.
Yeah.
And that's good. We all want that. Nobody wants to be in a disease state. Whereas vitality to me is your most robust, potent self, where your intuition is deep and strong, where your instincts are sharp, where your sense of self is just more profound. It's felt. It's very much connected. You move through life with a vibrancy. You're illuminated. You're that person that walks in the room that is just exuding technicolor. Like you look like what the fuck is she doing or he doing, versus someone whose vitality is not really there and they kind of have a dimness to themselves, right? So I don't think it's possible to really experience the fullness of your potential without your vitality being, as optimal as it can be.
It's beautiful.
And so, yeah, I don't know. What was the last part of the question?
Barriers, common barriers you see.
I mean, I think it's just, well, it'll go back to what you said. It's what you believe to be true about you. When back up years ago, I used to get this question all the time, like, how are you so consistent? And this is with my training or with my food and because I like to distill, I'll think about questions and concepts and ideas, and I like to distill it down to like, what's the thing? What's the sort of nucleus? What's the one? Simplify it, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I love myself too much not to.
Beautiful.
But this is, after hearing that so much, and I started to realize, and as I stepped more into, where I am now, where I realized, they're asking me because they want to know how to do it. Right. And so that answer, while it is a truth for you, and it's the most simple, it's like the naked truth, it's the root cause, right? It's not helping them because they don't even know how to do that. Oh, you love yourself so much.
Right.
So as I stepped into, this public facing forward woman who has a show and all this stuff where I'm now sharing, I'm like, wait, let me try and tease this out a little bit more. Like, how did I even get there though?
Yeah.
To that part where
So
it's like,
good.
I love myself so much. So this is now the answer. I believed that I was worthy of actually experiencing what vibrant living is, what thriving even is, what feeling good in your body even is, what looking in the mirror and loving what you see back at you is, what performing at excellence. Like I believed I was worthy of
that worthy
all
piece.
of that. So the belief then starts to, it just work, even when you're fighting the habits and the I don't know hows and all of that, that belief, it's like the Olympic torch, like it's a flame that just doesn't die and it will fight for you, right?
Yeah.
So I started fighting for myself because of that belief. So what I see is that most individuals that have those barriers haven't come to that belief about themselves yet, that they are worthy of experiencing that vitality and everything that comes with it.
And I love that you just said that because at the end of every episode, we always ask, like, what are the 3 takeaways? And I was going to ask both of you, like, and you just said so perfectly, like having to make it something simple. And that's a tangible thing. Like what you just described, I think is such a handle and a takeaway, which is that right there, the self-worth, the way you see your identity, the self-love. I mean, that's really ultimately, that's the irreducible primary. That is it right there. That is the takeaway, which is really so beautiful. Rachel, I would love to hear from you if you were to give away one thing you could just latch on to, someone who is really wants to experience stepping into more of a true identity or wants to become aware of, hey, maybe I need to examine it for the first time. How do you go about that? What would be a key or a handle that you would say?
I think that piece you just said there of curiosity, of actually looking at what are the beliefs and the views that I do carry about myself, because I think most of us don't know. And so even before we can go a step further and look at what are the new beliefs or the identities that I want to operate from or go into, what are my goals or the things that I'm wanting to create for my life, what are the current beliefs that I have about myself?
Yes.
And I think asking the question, what are the identities that I have, can be hard for many people. I like to break it down into what is the view that I have of myself in various circumstances? And so in my own healing journey, I would look at myself, whether it was public speaking or it was in a work engagement or whether it was in a relationship dynamic that I was in, or maybe I was experiencing some kind of a trigger in a moment, and I would pause. And in those moments, I would ask myself, right here, right now, what is the view that I have of myself? And pausing to reflect, I would usually find a view that then was creating the current feelings and my current physiology and how I was showing up in that very moment. So I think it's very difficult for a lot of people when they listen to a podcast like this of like, okay, I understand my identities and my beliefs now and how that shapes my reality. But to just say, what are my core identities that I have in a very large general sense, I think can be really difficult.
Sure.
I could probably break it down, yes, and be like, I'm an athlete, I'm a mother, I'm these things. And maybe we could even break it down further to some maybe negative beliefs that we have about ourselves. But I really like to go into these bite-sized moments of in this very moment right here, because the reality is I would find moments where I would be operating from a place of, oh, I am worthy. And I would also find moments where I was looking at myself from a view of, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And so it's not black and white. It changes on a moment to moment basis. And so I think a big part of this healing journey is becoming really curious.
Yeah.
And it is pausing. It is pausing in every single moment. And so anytime you're feeling a nervous system dysregulation, you're feeling frustration, you're feeling agitation, you're feeling let down, it's usually tied to some kind of a belief because there's a feeling there, which is then going to be tied to a view that you have about yourself in that moment that is creating your current reality. And so we talk about how identity creates our current reality in terms of, okay, it creates our life around us, but it also creates our current reality in the sense of right here, right now, the reality, my perception, and how I am experiencing the world and the people around me is actually rooted in this moment by the way that I am viewing myself. And so I think just becoming like this detective in our life and just examining everything. And it takes an immense amount of discipline. Like I have dedicated my entire life to this because if I would have just stayed in all of my own conditioning, I know you can relate to this and what I was brought up in, I would have a very different reality and a very different life right now. And so for me, it took an incredible, I don't even know if will is the right word, but dedication to pause and to really self-examine the things that were not working in my life. And I would even say a little bit further is look at the things that are currently in your life that maybe you dislike, whether it's your physical health, whether it's your relationships, your romantic relationship, friendships, family. Look at your finances. Look at these different areas of your life. And if you don't like the results that you're currently experiencing in any of these areas, I think there's the self-reflection that can be done to look at the views that we're carrying about ourselves in those core departments and how it's creating that reality.
I love that. I mean, so beautifully said. And what I love when I hear you talking is because I know you and I know your story, and I know that everything you just said is backed by so much truth. And I see you do it. I get to do business with you, and I see you take a moment of self-awareness and asking the question and self-examination. It's one of the reasons I feel such confidence and a close alignment with you. And so I just honor the fact that everything you said there, it's so eloquently put and so great, but it is just, there's the grit of real life on it. And I just love that so much. Like it's one thing to say things are really great, but like, I know you're in the arena and like, that's got some dirt on it in the best way. You know what I mean? Like that's some lived real like truth there. And that's beautiful. And
What would you say?
Wait, go ahead.
I was going to say, what would you say?
Me. Yeah. I would, I'll just get a little practical because I could just, everything you said and then everything you said, just so beautiful. I think a real practical one is just starting with questions like examining I'm the kind of person who never does this, always hates that. These statements we make about ourselves, is it true? Or did your family say that was true about you? Or did you just assume that was true? Some of those, you know what I mean? Like I'll meet people, I've always wanted to travel, but I'm just someone who can't fly. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you are, or maybe we could re-examine that one, and that's a real simple example. But just looking down those ones can help you to start seeing where an identity is. But then when it gets into, and you asked about a practicality of how to do a rewiring process, I think it's a mixture of a few things. And one is to really be able to get in a space. I think writing is really beautiful for this, where you actually align with and you feel and you see a vision of your truest self operating in every capacity of life. How am I truest self? Really see it in technicolor detail in my relationships, in my profession, all this. Some people call it manifesting or vision boarding. Those don't necessarily, for me specifically, resonate, but for me, it's just
feel it.
It's more of I can really see this is what the truth of who I am would look like, really exemplified in many areas of life. But then sometimes when you open your eyes, you shut the journal, what your current reality is experiencing is not that. And so that disconnect can lead to the sense of frustration. What I found at least worked for me personally was I started seeing discipline as a way to create practices that align with the truth of who I am, even when nervous system, feelings, emotions, hormones all fluctuate.
Yeah.
And I will say this about myself as I'm relentlessly consistent. Yeah. And part of the rewiring I was able to do from a physical level, from a mental level, was I started to do things, and I had times in which there was athletic things that I did that was really about a heart alignment to say that powerlessness identity I am no longer connected with because I was showing my body and my mind. I started reinforcing physically things, putting myself in new scenarios, traveling the world where there was a sense of I am safe and confident and comfortable. So for every person, it's different. I do think that outward action and getting to really see yourself, the trueness of who you are. It's not fake it till you make it. I think it's a wrong way to say that, but actually I think there's truth to what most people experience when they say it works. Yeah. I think all you're saying is you're actually just taking an action that aligns with your true self when your hormones, your nervous system, and your body doesn't feel it. And if you can do that consistently, I do think a beautiful and really marry it with the thought together, there is a rewiring that takes place. And so that for me has been really helpful, and it has to be consistent over a long period of time. But the nervous system really will adapt beautifully. The situations in which I felt really dysregulated and unsafe, I just feel like I can dance in them now with a beautiful safety like this. And there's going to be another one I know that I'm going to face it and feel like, again. Yeah. So learning to do that and learning to just show up for myself ultra consistently and not deviate. Yeah. Even when the body started giving some things, that helped a lot, and so that would probably be the practical, I would say.
I love that you bring in the physical element, because it brings it back to your question about the mind and the body connection. And so I do think a lot of what you're saying with discipline and exercise and pushing the body, not in a punishment type of a way, but also traveling and really opening yourself up, what you're doing is you are shifting your physiology. You are opening your body up. You are aligning your physical body and your energetic body with that, what you want to create more of in your life. And so we could bring this all the way down to consciousness and energy of if we're operating from a place of fear, all right, go move your body, go shift. motion creates emotion. And so when you can physically change your body, when you can open yourself up, you're going to start to see a shift in a lot of your beliefs. You're going to see a shift in your nervous system, which is going to ultimately help you create a brand new reality. So I love that.
Beautifully said. And I love that you bring the science element to it. I love that because I know the lived experience and I do know a good bit of the science. You articulate it very well. Yeah. And I love that. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about, the work and business that we're doing, why I love the things that you do every day, pouring into individual lives. I mean, you're changing the infrastructure on which people operate. And I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful contribution to humankind, really. It's a beautiful thing to unlock that in someone. And on that note, unlocked.
Thank you.
Bring it back to the brand. Catch this episode.
No, seriously, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Because we did.
Podcast.
Either way.
Yes, we did. Because if you didn't, we did. And until next time, same luck, new keys.